All right, welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving into a truly fascinating source text today, one that outlines the incredibly multidimensional role of an ancient Inca figure known as King Rient Cloud. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth does a ruler from over 7,000 years ago matter to us right now? Well, this material presents this highly complex, esoteric narrative of a leader who didn't just rule, he supposedly blended advanced scientific knowledge with profound spiritual teachings to literally fast-track human evolution. So whether you're looking at this as ancient history, esoteric lore, or just a captivating narrative about building a perfect civilization, the claims in these documents are just absolutely incredible to unpack. Okay, let's dive into this.
To really wrap our heads around what this text is claiming, we've got a roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the claims that he was a fugitive from Atlantis. Second, how he integrated politics, religion, and science. Third, his tangible mining and infrastructure development. Fourth, we'll cover his big conflict with native animism. And finally, the ultimate goal of his rule, the evolution to higher souls. Let's kick things off with Section 1, Fugitives from Atlantis, where we explore the text's claims about King Cloud's origin. According to the source material, his story doesn't actually begin in the Andes at all. The text explicitly details King Cloud's lineage, describing his ancestors as refugees who fled from Atlantis. But he didn't just wash up on shore as a struggling survivor, right? The text says he arrived as a high noble and priest. It sets up this massive, civilizational fish-out-of-water narrative. You've got this figure dropping into a completely different world, carrying all the prestigious titles and the immense weight of a highly advanced, lost civilization. The source literally calls him a descendant of Atlantis, bringing the secret traditions. We're just neutrally reporting this esoteric claim here because honestly, it's absolutely foundational to understanding his supposed reign. He wasn't some local ruler who organically rose to power. The text positions him as this guardian of lost ancient knowledge, essentially tasked with dropping this advanced understanding into a brand new world. Imagine that pressure, right? Carrying the last embers of a lost civilization and knowing you're the one responsible for keeping that flame alive. That brings us to Section 2, Integration of Politics, Religion, and Science. How exactly did he govern?
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how he handled his power. If you're an Atlantean refugee with all these secret traditions, how do you apply that to a new society? Well, the source claims he absolutely refused to be just a figurehead or a spiritual guru. Instead, he actively merged three distinct roles: political administrator, religious guide, and scientific innovator. He created this centralized hub where policy, spiritual law, and technology weren't competing against each other. They were all treated as one unified mission. You can see it right here in the text. It goes out of its way to state that his work went way beyond just religious rituals. It mentions his active involvement in politics and judgment, as well as pushing for scientific civilization. The source argues his rule was incredibly practical. He was making tough administrative decisions, pushing technological boundaries, and serving as the highest spiritual authority all at the same time. It's a level of multitasking that kind of completely redefines ancient leadership. Let's move to Section 3 and see how this builds into tangible mining and infrastructure development. The source makes some pretty wild claims about his technological interventions. It describes him bringing advanced civilization building techniques to the Andes, specifically focusing on mining and mineral refinement. But here's the kicker. It wasn't about hoarding wealth. The text emphasizes that he designed vital infrastructure, like massive irrigation projects, specifically to protect human lives. Think about the unforgiving Andean environment 7,000 years ago. Bringing in that kind of technology to a society struggling against nature, that's a total game changer. The texts dig even deeper into this, explicitly mentioning the mineral refinement. It notes he supposedly possessed the architectural know-how to build these massive, enduring structures. And according to the text, the #1 priority was always preserving human life. He used this Atlantean knowledge to build a physical buffer between his people and the unpredictable, violent forces of nature. He essentially engineered a safe haven. Which naturally leads us to Section 4, Conflict with Native Animism. What happens when advanced Atlantean ideas clash with indigenous practices? The source text sets up an incredibly stark contrast here. On one side, you have the established native animism.
The text describes these local beliefs as being driven by a very real, paralyzing fear of wild beasts and harsh nature, which tragically often resulted in things like animal or human sacrifices just to appease those brutal elements. But on the other side, you have King Cloud's radically different teachings. He offered this expansive vision focused on cosmic connection and a deep understanding of the human soul.
As a priest king, he directly challenged those local animistic traditions. He didn't just tweak their beliefs, he brought in entirely new, paradigm-shifting concepts. He basically told them, look, you don't need to live in terror of the earth, and you absolutely don't need to offer sacrifices. Instead, the text says he introduced practices aimed at actively seeking out the divine, even reportedly using local resources like coca leaves to achieve out-of-body spiritual exploration. He was trying to elevate their focus from the dirt and danger beneath their feet, straight to the infinite cosmos above. A total spiritual revolution.
So, the crucial point is, why? What was the ultimate goal? That brings us to Section 5, Evolution to Higher Souls. Just look at this quote. It captures the absolute core of King Cloud's rule, according to the text. The process of evolving from a human into a god by elevating the soul. That is a massive, earth-shattering philosophical shift. He was attempting to pivot a whole civilization away from just worrying about physical survival and strength, and instead establish the limitless potential of the human soul. The goal wasn't just to be better humans, it was to literally transcend humanity. The teachings reinforce this intense focus, highlighting a shift toward what it calls human superiority through the elevation of the soul. These teachings weren't just about surviving the elements with better infrastructure. They were about cosmic communication. They were about intentionally evolving the human soul to access higher dimensions, effectively changing the very nature of what it meant to exist. Which leaves us with a truly compelling final thought to chew on. According to the source material, King Cloud's rules supposedly hit this perfect sweet spot, integrating the technological advancements of a lost world with a profound cosmic framework aimed at soul evolution. So it begs the question, if a society struck a perfect balance between scientific progress and spiritual evolution 7,000 years ago, what might our modern, highly technological, yet often spiritually disconnected civilization be missing today? Have we gained the whole world but somehow forgotten how to evolve the soul? It's a fascinating question and one that definitely makes you want to explore these ancient claims even further. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.